welcome back to A Pain in the Art. Today I'm here with Robyn and we're going to be discussing acting techniques with emphasis on the Meisner method. So Robyn, where did you first hear about Meisner?
So I first heard about the Meisner technique after drama school, and I had never really heard of it during drama school. Started professionally acting when I was 14, and I was on a soap opera called Shortland Street, and I was playing a massive nerd on it. And then after high school, I went to Unitec School of Performing and Screen Arts in Auckland, in New Zealand. And I was introduced to so many different types of techniques. I was introduced to, you hear of the basics like Stanislavski and Grotowski and Labin and Strasberg, and you have theory and all the different kinds of practitioners. And I don't ever really remember learning about Meisner. I think I remember once doing like a little bit of it in regards to a script, and I can only remember this because a classmate of mine reminded me, where we were being made to repeat lines of the script, and I remember the director stopping every now and then and going, "Is everyone okay?" And I was like, "What is going on?" We're like, "What is this?" Anyway, and so after drama school, the thing about drama school for me personally, and I have to, kind of be careful because you have to realize that one's perception of training in certain places isn't the general consensus. And it's really, and my experiences was very mine and mine alone. But I really went to drama school thinking that I was going to love it. I remember the day that I found out I got into drama school, and all I've ever wanted to do in my life is act. And like I said, I've been doing it professionally since I was 14. And so the day I got into drama school, I just thought, oh God, I'm on my way. I'm really on my way. Like, this is amazing. This is like the first step. Everything's kind of falling into place with that 18-year-old mentality. And it so was not how I thought it was going to be. And some of my classmates, I speak to them now, and they remember that time as being the best time of their lives. They look back at that time and they love it. And I think they had the experience that I very much thought I was going to have. But I started developing depression probably the minute I got to drama school, and didn't really know what it was, and so kind of thought I was probably going a bit mad. And I think when you're around a lot of extroverted personalities and you're around very loud people, for somebody who myself has been one of those people, I found myself becoming incredibly introverted, and I found myself going up into my head, and the depression symptoms started to come on, which so affected my time at drama school, except I just couldn't put a name to it. And, I got into a relationship with somebody else at drama school, which totally doesn't help matters because, God, you're together for 18 hours a day at school, and then you're together after school, and then you wake up and then you go back to school and you're together. And it was just, I feel like it was kind of, I think I put myself into the seventh circle of hell. And so came out of drama school and felt like I couldn't act, and kind of was getting very small roles in film, and then I started doing a theatre show with the Auckland Theatre Company. And I remember in passing saying to a castmate of mine, I said, I really feel like I'm stuck in my head. And I really feel like, I stand on stage and I feel like I don't know what to do. I feel so terrified. And like, I know I've got the role, so I know I obviously can do this, but I legitimately feel like I can't act. And it was because everything that I had been learning for 3 years at drama school put me up into my head. I'm an actor that's very analytical. I'm an overthinker anyway. I'm anxious. I'm calculating. I'm ruled by fear. My God, I live in fear every single day of my life. So I'm constantly planning things in my head in order that I don't, get run over by a truck or lie down and die. Like I'm in my head all the time. And then I found myself getting on stage, and I would stand on stage and go, what do I do? What do I do? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this wrong? My God, my hands are big. What do I do with my hands? How do I stand? Am I standing on one foot? Where are we in the play? What did you just say? Oh, now it's my line. Like, it was awful. And I just thought to myself, I'm not having a great time. I don't know how to do this. I obviously just can't act. Obviously, I've just drama school has made me realize that this is not my career and I can't do this. And I kind of was talking to a castmate and she said, you know what? I think you should study Meisner. And I had barely heard of it and I didn't really know what it was. And I kind of went, all right, sure. And then I was talking to an old classmate of mine from drama school and I kind of was saying the same thing. And she went, I really think you should study Meisner. So I thought to myself, what is this secret like Meisner cult that everybody seems to know? And so I went and met with Mike Sasente. And Mike Sasente is known as the Meisner teacher in New Zealand. He studied under Sanford Meisner and then moved to New Zealand. And all of these amazing actors, excuse me, who work in New Zealand were kind of training with Mike. And so I went and had this interview with Mike and I was going into the class 6 weeks late. And he kind of said to me, he was asking me all these questions about why I wanted to come and train, and after drama school, why did I, need more training? And I said exactly what I said to you. I just said, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I feel like I'm stuck in my head and I'm freaking out and I feel like I know I can act, but I can't seem to act. And he kind of stopped me and he was like, okay, come to class. And Mike has probably changed so many actors' lives in New Zealand. Mike is kind of this fairy godfather who gets people like me, really, these actors who just are so great and need to just take their training and their ability to the next level. And I credit Mike as completely changing my life. Meisner, in the technique sense, has absolutely changed my life. I feel like I would be in a home. I feel like I would be in a mental insane asylum if Mike hadn't taught me what he did. And being the kind of teacher that he was, it's not just the fact that the Meisner technique works for the kind of actor that I am and helps me get out of my head and actually just become really present and become really responsive and become really honest. But Mike, being the person that he is, completely revolutionized the way that I feel like I function in my everyday society. And I know that there are actors out there that would say the same about him. He's a living legend, and I cannot, and if I can be in what I do in my life, make as much of an iota of a difference of what Mike does in terms of coaching and working with actors, I will actually die a happy woman. He is the most, I don't know, I can't say enough good things about him. Every single day I get up into my head or I think to myself, what would Mike say? And I can hear Mike just screaming at me from the corner of the room. And I'm like, right, okay, that's what Mike would say. And then I can go on about my life. And then after studying with Mike for 3 years, I kind of thought to myself, it was after that first Meisner class with him that I was like, thank God. I've been looking for this for 4 years. And I'm not here to say that Meisner is the only acting technique out there. Every single actor is different, and every single actor works in completely different ways. So there are different techniques for different actors. If actors don't get stuck up into their heads and they need, I don't know, a more visceral, visual sense of how to behave differently and how to bring their emotions to the forefront, Robyn might work for them, and that's brilliant. What I wish I had been told when training is that if this technique doesn't work for you, that's great. I wish I'd been taught that, because I spent 3 years being taught, thinking that I had to learn what was being put in front of me, and I absolutely had to get it right, because it felt like it was this way or no way. And if you don't master this technique, and if this technique doesn't work for you, then you are not an actor. And I know that's all in my head, and I know that nobody actually said that to me, but unfortunately that's what the incentive felt like. And that's what I went away feeling, was going, oh my God, I can't do Robyn. I can't understand why I need to be a thruster, presser, slasher. I mean, if you don't know Robyn, then that won't make any sense to you. But it was this feeling of going, oh my God, I can't get this, and I don't understand why I'm doing this, and I'm not being a flickering flame on top of a running stream. And because it didn't make any sense to me, I just thought, oh my God, I suck. And I wish it had been more offered as a smorgasbord of going, this is just one way to do it. because I am that actor that needs to be told it's fine. You've got the freedom to take what you want from this. And it's only reading, my God, like David Mamet's book and Sanford Meisner's book and Stella Adler's book and Uta Hagen's book and Lee Strasberg's book and all these books that actually, after I am, again, that actor that's incredibly information based and incredibly analytical. If I can read all that and hear these authors say to me that it's kind of, this is what they've created and this is just one way of doing it, I feel like my experience would have been very different. But that's what Mike kept on saying. He kept on saying, if this works for you, then pursue it and understand this and study it and use this to become great. So after that, I went to the Neighborhood Playhouse School of Theatre in New York and studied at the Meisner School and studied under a guy there called Gary Kingston, who was actually Mike's classmate when they were studying under Sanford Meisner together. And Gary is as batshit crazy as Mike, and I just adore both of them because they're so similar and so different. And it is that technique, and it's those teachers that absolutely changed me as an actor. And I feel like I don't give Mike enough credit in really, and I don't say it enough when I do press for the South Africans or I went home for the premiere of this film that I'm in. I really wish I had taken Mike to the premiere of this feature film. It was this evening of kind of something you dream about since you were 10 years old, and you dream of being a movie star. And I completely credit teachers I've had in my life all really giving, and I'm absolutely not saying that teachers I had at drama school didn't do anything for me. I'm absolutely not. I'm talking about my experience from being up in my head and feeling at periods in that time incredibly suicidal and feeling like I didn't want to get out of bed and I didn't know what to do, I feel like if I had been in a completely different headspace, I would have really utilized and understood my teachers so much better. And my teachers, like, God, I had a voice teacher called Kirsty O'Sullivan, I had Michelle Hine, I had John Callan, who are these greats in the industry, the absolute pinnacles of being brilliant at what they do, trying to teach me. And I feel like I didn't take what they were saying and really run with it. And when I left drama school, I think I was incredibly bitter. And I ended up writing a blog and doing an online blog in order to vent my frustration. Not at anybody personally. It totally may have come across that way. But it wasn't the intention. It was the intention to kind of speak to any other actors who felt this way for 3 years. And I think Mike is almost similar to, and Meisner's technique is very almost similar to my mother, which is a very no-nonsense type of, he was a very no-nonsense type of teacher. My mother's a very no-nonsense type of person where the technique, it doesn't have time for you to be in your head. Meisner is getting you out of your head and getting you present and putting your attention on the person in front of you. And the minute you learn this from somebody, and Mike is incredibly passionate about what he does, which is amazing. And so you're doing the technique, and he can see you going back up into your head. So he starts yelling at you, which freaks you out so much that you actually just kind of end up being so shocked that you end up kind of just listening to the person in front of you and responding, which is exactly what you need to do. And the minute you get out of your head and you put the attention on the person in front of you, which is what the baseline of Meisner is all about, you don't have time to be in your head. You don't have time to be worrying, and you don't have time to be depressed. You've got to serve what is happening in the present moment, and you've got to respond. And this is why I think every day, if I get up into my head, I have to ask myself, what would Mike do? Because he was that person that really snapped me out of it. But I think this is why learning that technique really was the catalyst for me to start writing theatre. I've always wanted to do it. In my first solo show, which was called Introducing Anna in 2010, and I wrote it in New Zealand and I was 22, I felt incredibly nervous and incredibly fearful. And the reason I did it is because I wasn't being cast. I'd only just started studying, and I wanted to put myself on stage, and I thought to myself, well, if nobody's going to put me on stage, I'm going to put my goddamn self on stage and show people what I can do. And the fear and the anxiety and the depression never goes away. But at the end of the day, you have to really ask yourself, what do you want? Are you quite happy to not do this? And stay where you are in terms of your writing ability and your acting ability, and go, you know what, I've reached my peak. I've done little 10-minute things. I'm happy with that. It was well received, and I'm good with my talent. Or do I want to see how much further I can go? And feel fearful and feel incredibly nervous and be, shaking in your boots, but just do it anyway. There's a great book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Oh, I think I've read that.
It's
My mum has it, yeah.
It's a brilliant book.
Yeah.
It was written way back in the day. It's probably a bit dated. But essentially what it says to you is, don't stop being nervous. Be nervous, but do what you want to do. So this is why I did the South Africans. I put the South Africans up for the first 10 minutes in the Short Theatre Festival in New Zealand. And at that time, I was getting a postgraduate degree in journalism from Auckland University of Technology. And I was in the utter throes of depression. I had taken 3 weeks sick leave off uni because I literally could not wash my hair. I would wake up every morning and wish I was dead. I would drive my car over the Auckland Harbour Bridge and think to myself, half a turn to the left, and it would be into the harbour and you won't be in pain anymore. It was such a horrifically dark time. And yet somehow through it, I wrote 10 minutes of the South Africans. I took it out of a play I'd written previously. I submitted it to the theatre festival. I rehearsed it, and I got on stage. And I did it in a 700-seater theatre. And I ended up winning an award for it. There's an intrinsic drive. There's something deeper than what your mind fabricates. And it is creating and reading books of self-awareness and realizing that you are not that voice in your head and you're not your mind. And that those worst case scenarios, the fabrication of what your head is saying to you, that creates so much pain. You have to understand that you are not that, and you're deeper than that. And whatever that is actually surface. And in somewhere underneath this depression, I thought to myself, God, I'd really regret it. I'd really regret it if I didn't put the South Africans in for this festival. I'd really regret it if I didn't see if I had something good here. And now here we are, 7 years later. And depression, I mean, it never really ever goes away. But for me, I want to be what I want to be in my life. And the reason I do this, and the reason I'm, as you're probably finding out being on my team, the reason I'm so incredibly anal about what I do and how I do it is because I'm not really satisfied with where I am in terms of my career. And I'm not really satisfied in terms of my level of ability yet. I do the South Africans at 10 minutes and I go, that's great. I could stop here and stop with my award and feel very good about myself and go, oh good, remember that time you won an award in that festival? That was nice. I can now settle down and stop here. But I didn't feel done. And I thought, what happens if I took it to an hour? Oh, that would be fun. Then suddenly it was, what if I took it to Edinburgh? That would be fun. Now it's doing well at Edinburgh. You know what would be better than 2 characters? 4 characters. You know what would be better than 4 South African accents? 4 different accents. You know what would be better than that? It would be now doing different posture. It would be creating this Rowan Atkinson style of physical theatre, of this kind of sleight of hand or theatrical prowess. How fun would it be to do all of this? So it was this thing of, if I'm going to do this, then I want to be the best that I can be. And I don't feel like I'm done being the best. I'm not the best. I could be so much better than what I am now. And it's fun. I mean, it's incredibly difficult. And especially like I've spoken about in previous podcasts, so this one show is really, it's really emotionally kicking my ass because it's incredibly sensitive, and I've written about stuff that is painful, essentially. thinking it would be cathartic to do it, which I think I've really miscalculated, but it's fine. I'm in too deep now, so it just needs to be done. But I spent my whole life feeling foolish. All I wanted to do in high school was act. That's all I ever wanted to do. Since I was 3 years old, I didn't want to do anything, and I used to be incredibly bullied in high school. And of course I was fodder for the bullies. I loved drama. I was terrible at maths. I hated science. My poor parents had to put me through extra outside of school tutorials because I used to just sit in maths and cry because I couldn't understand what was going on. And finally, thank God for Mr. Ferry. Mr. Ferry is probably the Mike Sesente equivalent of high school tuition. I just would sit in science, we'd be talking about isotopes, and I just wouldn't even engage. I'd go, I have no idea what they're saying, I don't understand, I'm just going to take it to Mr. Ferry. And if you're out there, Mr. Ferry, thank you for getting me through high school, because I just wouldn't have done it. But I had no self-awareness, and I didn't really have much self-awareness in drama school either. But I had no self-awareness in the fact of caring what it was like to be cool. I didn't want to be cool. I wanted to act. And I didn't understand the idea of cliques, and I didn't understand the idea of social hierarchy because I didn't care. All I wanted to do was finish the next 3 years, wherever I was in high school, get out and go to a school where all I got to do every single day was act. That's all I wanted to do. And I remember talking about it, and when you're passionate about something at such a young age, you're not cool. You are severely, severely picked on. And because you're vulnerable when you talk about it. And you expect people to be incredibly supportive. And the one problem I have very, very much with New Zealand in that sense is, and don't get me wrong, New Zealand is one of the best places on earth, but there is a rampant issue that runs through New Zealand society called tall poppy syndrome. And Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords has talked about this as well, where if somebody, it's tall poppy syndrome in the fact that if somebody gets ahead of somebody else, or if somebody grows taller out of society, as opposed to supporting, society will do anything they can to cut them down, whether it's back chat, whether it's behind their hands talking, whether it's those horrible jokes, quote unquote. And that was my life at high school, was people really being insulting and really cutting you down, and then going, it's a joke, relax. I hated being told to relax. I hated being told to chill out. I hated being told to calm down. Absolutely not. And I felt stupid. And it gets me quite emotional, because I knew I really wanted to be great.
Mm.
And I know what I wanted to do. And I felt like nobody got it. And instead, I just felt it was 7 years of high school of feeling like you're a fool because you want to be great at this. And then I went to drama school, again, thinking it was going to be an institution that would encourage one to become so obsessed with their craft and be encouraged and nurtured. And I claim fault for being up in my head, but I felt like, again, I felt stupid and I felt picked on.
I don't think you should claim fault for how you're feeling, though. I do think however you were feeling was extremely valid. That's not a reflection of the school, it's a reflection of your own experience. And that's not, I think blaming yourself won't help that, if that makes sense.
It's the thing is, I really don't want to come across like I'm blaming. I'm not.
No, I don't think you. I just meant like. Sorry.
I'm just saying that it's incredibly. I understand that people out there would be feeling similar, and I'll tell you something I watched recently that made me go, yes, was a video, an interview of an artist called Philip Quast, and Philip Quast He plays Javert in the 95 10th anniversary special of Les Mis, the Dreamcast, at the Royal Albert Hall. And the Dreamcast is made up of the best of the best. And I'm actually going to go see Ruthie Henshaw sing this weekend in the Chiswick Proms here in London, and she plays Fantine. And she is, and I talk about this to my students that I teach all the time. How the Dreamcast is, you've got the best of the best. You've got Leah Solange, who is the voice of Pocahontas in the Disney film, playing Eponine. And then you've got Philip Quast. Philip Quast is just, my friend Jeremy, who's a musician, he is as obsessed as I am. Philip Quast is known as the best Javert of all time. And he is absolutely brilliant. And talk about being great. The man is the epitome of great. He is so good at what he does that you watch him and everything about him is great. He is one of the greats. And he teaches musical theatre at NIDA, which is the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney. And I've been asked to go and lecture at the National Institute of Dramatic Art on acting, and I haven't teed it up yet. I keep trying to figure out a time that I'm in Sydney. And I said this to Jeremy, and Jeremy said, what are you going to do if you see Philip Quast? And I said, I'm absolutely going to fangirl. I am not going to even try and hold back. I don't get starstruck a lot, but he is somebody who I watch giving an interview. There is an interview on YouTube, and it says Philip Quast gives a masterclass in singing. And I encourage everybody to watch this. Watching him talk is the epitome and the comfort that I feel like I have been seeking my whole life. Because watching him, he's this unknown person. You don't know who he is. You've never probably heard of him before.
I think I've heard of him from the Les Mis Dreamcast, but...
Well, most of the mainstream society probably don't know his name. They probably know of him. But he is this he sits in giving this interview, and he looks like he's coming off the farm. He's wearing a khaki-coloured shirt, and he's twirling a straw hat in his fingers. And the way he talks about speaking in song and bringing everything emotionally wise to the forefront. And he's talking specifically about Javert's suicide, the song of Javert's suicide. There's no pretension about him. There is no element of grandeur. There's no element of ego or this sense of showing how great he is. He is just so good at talking about it, and the way he speaks about the antithesis in song, it doesn't just relate to musical theatre. Just listening to him speak is an absolute master of his craft. And my father has this wonderful saying of, if you want to soar with the eagles, don't run with the turkeys. And I understand what he means in saying that if you want to be great at what you do, if you want to find your outer regions of your ability and your talent and your levels, you have to find people who are also as obsessed and also as passionate about their specific, it doesn't have to be performing arts, it doesn't have to be acting, but of their craft. And Philip Quast is that one person that I listen to speak, and I am just enamored. And watching him just really epitomizes that thing that I think drives so many actors and so many artists into being great. And I feel like it's just watching somebody who is so damn good at what they do. It just feeds me in terms of wanting to be like that. I was just talking to somebody yesterday about this, and this feeling of, if this is what you want to do, and this is something that you've been passionate about your whole life, why wouldn't you do this? So you are doing it to the absolute best of your ability. And when I see people like him talking, it just gives me this feeling of being comforted, because it makes me feel like I haven't been foolish in my whole life up until this moment. I haven't been as much of an outcast as what I felt. And I haven't been as much of a fool or a nerd, or in all of those horrible things that actually, the older you get, you realize it aren't actually bad things, but that people make you feel bad about. I mean, just when I see people who have been so saturated in their passion and who have become so obsessed about this and so obsessed with what their what their thing is, it makes me feel like I'm not so alone in this pursuit of mine to want to be so great at what I do. Because, and that's why, and we've talked about it in another podcast, but if you are not happy at the limit of your ability, why wouldn't you take yourself and face that fear of growth and put yourself in a different environment, in a different society where you don't feel constrained to everybody else's small mentality of making you stay where you are. You need to, there's a great quote that says, if you become the most talented person in the room, then go and find another room. And I know that sounds arrogant, and I'm not saying that to be arrogant, but what I'm saying is that if you're a goldfish at a certain size in a small bowl, then why wouldn't you move into a bigger bowl and grow to a larger size? And that's why it just gets me in my feels, because I know that there are people out there that were probably like that with me as well. And I realize that I'm yelling and I don't really care. But it's this, there are probably people out there as well who feel like this and feel like they're alone in wanting to be so good and wanting to become obsessed with their passion, and there's no one else around that really seems to understand them or understand why they feel like they need to do this. I don't really understand what governs me to push myself outside of my comfort zone and try and put on theatre that, like I say, the show's doing my head in. But try and push myself to the next level of my ability, and then to the next, and then see what I'm capable of. It's like people who climb mountains. I don't know what their incentive is in order to put themselves out there like that, and I don't really know what governs me, but I just know that I would regret it if I didn't try. And the thing that makes me, that really kind of took me from where I was in terms of being in New Zealand and being happy with the small roles and things that I was getting on the different shows, and was learning Meisner. It really was. It's not even the fact that the technique teaches you to be incredibly present, because the minute that you're present is the minute that you get out of your mind. And you don't have time to indulge in fear and that voice in your head if you are being in the moment. And Meisner teaches you to be incredibly present and deal with what is happening around you and respond to the surrounding circumstance truthfully. And you can't do that if you are trying to be like somebody else. And you can't do that if you are trying to be what you think you should be, or you're trying to deny who you actually are. I realize that I have absolutely no chill. I always wanted, in the first half of my life, to be the cool girl. I so wanted to be that chill girl that was like, whatever, man. Like, yeah, no problem. I'm so not. I understand that there's a balance in life. I understand that there's time for mindfulness. I understand there is presence, and I understand there's room in my life for meditation and for yoga. But when it comes to being passionate about something, I hate being told to sit back on my passion. And this is why I just feel like Mike and the Meisner technique absolutely changed who I was. It was the first time that I felt like I was learning something that told me to be me. Because if I am who I am, then I will act the way that I, Robyn Patterson, acts. And nobody else will act the way that I act, or behave the way that I behave. And if I go into that casting room and I do it with the collaboration with the director, but I do it my way, with my impulses and my instincts, then nobody else will do it like that. And if I don't get cast, then so be it. But there will be times where I am exactly what they're looking for. And Mike always says that learning Meisner is like getting herpes, which I so enjoy. It's so gross, but it's so true. It's like life skills. You cannot be a present instinctive, impulsive, honest actor if you are not a present, instinctive, impulsive human being. And when I say present, it doesn't mean learning to disengage from the voice in your head. It doesn't mean don't have neuroses. I'm probably one of the most neurotic people you'll ever meet. I just saw a dear friend of mine yesterday, and I was saying something to him, and he went, "My God, Robyn, if there's one thing you are, it's consistent." And I went, "Why? Because I'm neurotic?" And he was like, "Well, yeah." And I was like, "Well, yeah, nothing's changed. I haven't seen him in 2 years." But what it is the awareness behind that my mind goes, or whatever, my head works in mysterious ways, but I am not that. I'm not that voice in my head. I am the awareness behind it. And it doesn't mean I don't ever not engage with my head. I do, I just have to be aware of when I'm doing it. But the technique teaches you that you are the character is you. And this is what I found so damn liberating, is that it's not about pretending to be something else. It is you. It's you in that circumstance. It's the most liberating thing to learn after feeling your whole life that you're wrong. That you're wrong for being passionate. And you're wrong for wanting to be great. And you're wrong because you're not chill and you're not relaxed. And then you go to drama school and again it's that engaging with the head. You're wrong because this technique doesn't work for you. It's wrong because you're not standing in this place at the right time. It's wrong because you're not saying the line a certain way. That's how it felt for me. To learn that technique that taught me my impulses are right and my instinct is right, and how I feel in response to behavior or a surrounding circumstance around me is right, that I'm allowed to feel this way because the behavior in front of me made me feel like this, and I'm allowed to feel like that because I have opinions on how you're behaving or what is happening. To be told that that's the key to becoming truthful in acting, it was the most liberating thing I've ever heard in my life. And then to go and study in New York, where you're surrounded by Americans who I adore but are completely batshit crazy, that then encourage you to feel your feelings fuller, to go from being told to change how you feel because you must, because this is how you have to be, to then be told that how you're feeling is right, and now feel it fuller, and now be full in your emotion, and now follow that instinct through, because that's what we want. I mean, my God, it was just, this is why I am the way I am now. It was just, this is why the Meisner technique and Mike, I'm so incredibly passionate about it. Because it's revolutionary. And like I say, and this is why I get emotional over it, because you spend however long in your life trying to combat how you feel, to then be told that this is your key to unlock yourself in order to do what you love. I mean, it's like the best meal you've ever had that's been covered by a glass dish, and somebody takes off the glass dish and just says, eat it. It's right there. I mean, and I can only talk about it because I can only talk about what works for me. And I'm not sitting here preaching and talking about how this is the only way, but I have this feeling that everything is evolutionary, and just like anything, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's the Industrial Revolution or whether it's finance or whether it's whatever, everything evolves and strategies evolve. And we went from melodrama to Stanislavski believing that human emotion was more interesting, to Adler thinking that emotional recall and memory was where it's at, to other people thinking that it's more the point of focus should be on becoming this idea of character and putting yourself through and living in the idea of being this other person, to locking yourselves in an attic for 4 days to play Anne Frank. I mean, whatever, we've evolved, and we are now, I think, and this is only me in my opinion. But we are now in a place where we are so saturated with information, and we are so highly identified with our heads and that voice in the head, and image and aesthetic and insecurity, and up comes because we aren't present anymore. We are pushed into thinking of what is coming next, and the future, and the past, and reliving those terrible things we did when we were 14, or those stupid things we said when we were 10, and now we wonder where we're going, and how are we going to do it, and how are we going to get there, and we are never here in the moment. And I feel that actors are now looking for this thing that brings you right back into the moment. Not every actor is up in their head. You have actors who find being in the moment incredibly easy. Some actors are incredibly generous with their attention. They love listening to others. They're very, they access the moment incredibly easily. But a lot of actors don't. And a lot of actors fear vulnerability, and a lot of actors fear being affected, and a lot of actors fear being exposed. So different techniques work for different actors. They will hide behind a mask, feeling that they are hiding behind different postures or voices or whatever it may be, whatever the key is for them. Suddenly the impulses can flow. Suddenly the honesty flows. Suddenly what Meisner calls the emotional river flows underneath. It's great. It's great if it works for them. But others might feel stuck. And others might feel in their head, and they stand on stage like I used to do and go, my God, my hands are big. What the hell do I do with my hands? Oh my God, I can't stop thinking about my hands. Other actors might be like that. So what do you need to learn? You need to learn how to put your attention on something other than yourself. And you have to learn how that moment, this moment, is the key to becoming honest and truthful. Which is why I think more and more people are seeking out this technique. But that's just my opinion on it.
I don't know, I feel like we've really talked about a lot of different things and definitely covered a lot of different topics and why Meisner really does work for you. And I think it's definitely been interesting because I've studied drama and I've studied different practitioners, and I'd never heard of Meisner until literally our job interview. So for talking to us today, Robyn.
Of course.
And yeah, bye.